Hey y'all, it's Bo Brotherton with Better Together Life and the Shed 2 House Facebook group. And today I'm going to show you the easiest and most thorough tutorial on how to install shiplap on a wall. Or if you're like me, how to install shiplap on an entire house. Okay, so like I was saying in the intro, most of you are going to just be installing shiplap on just a wall, like an accent wall. You're going to actually be installing the shiplap on top of your drywall. Because if you're in like a normal suburban house, you're not going to tear down your drywall just to put the shiplap on. You're just going to install the shiplap boards on top of the drywall. But that's not what we did in this small office space. We actually did it for the entire space, which there's really not a ton different, except when you're doing it on top of drywall, you're going to need to mark the studs. Okay, so we chose to install shiplap in all of the walls and the ceilings of our 330 square foot shed that we are converting into our YouTube and podcast studio. But now let's go ahead and go over all of the tools and the materials you're going to need to install your shiplap wall. First thing you're going to need, of course, is the shiplap. We went with 9 1/16 inch by 5 1/4 inch pre-prime boards that come in 12-foot long lengths, and we got these at Home Depot. And of course, I'll put all the links to all the tools and materials down in the description below for everything. Now, these boards are made out of pine and are a variation of the standard tongue and groove boards that most people are used to. They are called a nickel gap, which they give this perfect slot between the boards that just look fantastic and really give that cool shiplap look that everybody loves, but is extremely easy to install and is pretty much dummy proof. Next things you're going to need is you're going to need 2-inch 18 gauge nails. Then you're going to need a nail gun. We went with the Ryobi cordless airstrike, which is just super amazing at this, but you could also go with an air powered nail gun if that's what you have. Then what you're going to need is a saw. I highly recommend that you use a miter saw for this so that you can get those straight 90-degree perfect angles. I guess you could go with a circular saw if you're doing just a small accent wall, but a miter saw is a must if you have to stack these boards together and you need square cuts for them to butt up against each other. Then if the wall that you're going to do has any outlets, then you're definitely going to need a jigsaw, or I use a multi-tool, which I'll show you here in a bit, to be able to cut around those outlets. Last, what you're going to need is, of course, a tape measure and a pencil or a pen to mark your cuts. These things are not needed, but they could be helpful. Is a small little crowbar for fine-tune adjustments. You definitely want to make sure that your boards are level with each other. Otherwise, you'll start seeing drifts in the gap, because some of these boards can be bowed, and so you just want to make sure that you can make these fine-tune adjustments, and a small little crowbar really helps out with that. And then the last thing, which is not necessary at all, could be a table saw to be able to rip the boards. Usually you would do that for your top board if you are going all the way up to the ceiling and that board needs to be shorter. You could, again, use a circular saw if you just had a long 2x4 board and use that as a guide. All right, let's build it. All right, so now the beginning step, and by far the hardest, is going to be this first bottom run of boards. You're going to want to make sure it is level with the ground. And of course, in a normal house that's already built, you're going to need to remove your baseboard trim first. So you're going to measure from the end of the wall to either the other side of the wall or to your last stud. If your wall is less than 12 foot long, then congrats, because the install is going to be super easy for you. So after marking your studs with a good stud finder, you're going to take your first board measurement and mark and cut that board. If your wall is longer than 12 foot long, then you will need to decide how you want to design or stagger your boards. Now, we chose to make a completely random design because of how much shiplap there is in this house, so we didn't want to see any patterns at all. You might like patterns, and that is totally up to you. But again, this is only if your wall is longer than 12 foot. your measurement needs to end, or it's called break, halfway on the stud. This is because you will need to nail both the end of this board, but also you're going to need to have room to nail the next board that butts up against it, both to one single stud. Just like this. For us, we knew that we were going to have tall baseboards, so I chose to raise up that first row of boards to the height about the size of a scrap piece of 2x4. So now you see me here being super specific, measuring the distance. Now our floor was a little off, so I didn't trust the level, but using a level should be fine for you. Here you will see why life will be much easier on a shorter than 12-foot accent wall. If you have to butt up the boards, you have to pay attention to your cuts being squared off, so you minimize the gaps between the attached boards. For the first run of boards, I chose to put 3 nails per stud. And then after this, I chose to do 2 nails per stud. One thing you'll know is that where these boards overlap, you just put 1 nail right there, and that actually is using 1 nail to hold together 2 boards. And that can help you save money on the nails and time putting up all the nail holes. The first row done. That first run of boards is definitely the hardest. You just want to spend a lot of time making sure that that is good. It gets a lot easier after that. Okay, so now is the time when we need to go over cutting around the outlets. It's not the worst in the world, but it is a pain, especially for us because of how many outlets my wife wanted in this little studio. Most of you will choose to cut around your outlets with a jigsaw. I didn't because I ran out of time and I didn't have a fine-tooth blade for my jigsaw. You must, I repeat, you must have a fine-tooth blade for your jigsaw for these boards. Otherwise it will shake and it will beat everything up like crazy and you just will have a worthless board at the end. Which led me to attempt to use my multi-tool. We call it the Giggity. I have no idea why. But it does the trick and gets the job done pretty fast and super easy. Even as I'm trying to teach you this, I realize that I cut this backwards. I cut it from the wrong spot, and it'll happen. You will mess up. That's why you buy more boards than you think you will need. And here is the mistake that I made that is going to add lots of annoying time. I didn't cut about 90% of my outlets correctly. I cut the shiplap around the entire electrical box. The proper way to do it is to cut a much smaller hole and allows the outlet to unscrew and set on the shiplap. See here how the cover doesn't fit? That is because the outlet is too deep. So I had to buy these spacers that will bring the outlet back out, which works fine and just adds maybe 5 or 10 minutes per outlet to fix. And then this is whenever I figured out my mistake, and this is the proper way to trim around your outlets. Just be sure to turn off all the power to your outlet before you're messing around if you're not used to working with electrical. After about 2 or 3 rows, you'll start getting into the groove. Make sure everything is level. Pay attention to your warped boards by adjusting the spacing as you go. Rinse and repeat. All right, y'all, so that is it. Now, as you can see, we've done shiplap on even the ceiling, like all the walls and the ceilings. Things, of course, are gonna pop once we have things up on the wall, so it looks just like a lot of white here on video. But with the ceiling, if you're interested in me doing a dedicated video on how to install shiplap on a ceiling, please give me a comment down below. Let me know that that is going to be worth it. I knew that there's a lot of people that want to do just a single accent wall, but doing the ceiling, there's a lot of little things that you need to know before you're doing something like that. It is a different animal doing this shiplap on a ceiling. So let me know below if that's what you want. Also, please remember to smash the like button, YouTube algorithm, and we'll see you on the next one. This studio is coming along. I cannot wait to share with you what Kelly's gonna be planning over in this ceiling underneath here. And then also the flooring, little peek right there, the flooring is so rad. Oh, we love this flooring far better than we do in our main house. And then for some of y'all who are joining us just for the accent wall and learning how to do shiplap, if you're interested in tiny houses or any kind of homesteading stuff, that's what our channel is about. Okay, thanks y'all. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.